Good day to you all, and welcome to Bad Day Excellence, the podcast where we turn those tough days into stepping stones for greatness. Hello, I'm Brian Walsh, a relentless optimist with over a decade of experience in marketing, software development, leadership, and business. Over this time, I've lost over 100 pounds, run a marathon, built a successful freelancing business, and worked with some of the most inspiring people I have ever met. I'm here to help you build habits that create clarity, success, and a meaningful life, even when life feels chaotic. Every week, we'll dive into the art of habit formation, how you can apply it to your career, parenting, relationships, and beyond. Today's episode is all about how to build a habit of harnessing what makes you unique and turning it into something positive. We'll break it down for you so by the end, you'll have actionable takeaways to make a positive shift starting now. Ready to turn your next bad day into your next breakthrough? Let's get started. For the majority of my life, I have seen myself as a square peg that didn't quite fit the round hole so nicely, especially when it came to leadership positions. In college, I was popular enough to win the vice president of my class, but when it came to electing leadership roles in my fraternity, I wasn't measuring up. Fast forward a decade, and I received my very first promotion to lead developer. I began to grow even further when I tried to make that transition to full-on management. Again, I did not quite make it. This never fazed me. In fact, it fueled my passion of helping people even more, because that is what leadership means to me. I am constantly asking myself, how can I create opportunities for growth in others so that they can feel confident in themselves? I have used every piece of feedback, every interaction, and every life lesson as a cue for self-reflection. I do the hard work and really shift the spotlight to understand what went wrong and discover ways to tweak my interactions. I am proud to say I was able to obtain a leadership role at an insurance company called Crum & Forster, and now support several teams filled with amazing people. It has been a wonderful experience as Crum's leadership really invests a lot of the time and effort into growing everyone in the company. They offer leadership development training and establishing forums for anyone to share their point of view. But what got me over that hump? What was the secret sauce that was needed to reach these new heights? I harness what made me unique, and that advantage is my ADHD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. It means my brain works a little differently, and it can make focusing, sitting still, and following through on things harder sometimes. It's like having a race car engine in your brain. It's powerful and full of energy, but sometimes it's tricky to steer or slow down. You might feel like your thoughts are racing or you're trying to watch 10 TV shows at once. But it also means I'm super creative and full of ideas and often really good at thinking outside of the box. I want to highlight these 3 traits from ADHD that help me be the best leader I can be. They are hyperfocus, creativity, and energy and enthusiasm. Hyperfocus is a very concentrated state where I am completely absorbed into a task and tune everything else out. 2 months ago, I was on a plane home and I was writing my book. I was just in an amazing state of flow and hyperfocus. There was nothing in my world, just my laptop, classical music, and my thoughts on habit formation. What I didn't realize was the gentleman right across the aisle from me was actually suffering from an elevated heart rate. My wife tapped me on the shoulder and pointed over to the gentleman. We were actually on the verge of making an emergency landing, but luckily there was a cardiologist on the plane. What are the odds? Everything ended up being okay, and we were able to make it home, and the gentleman seemed to walk off the plane and get through customs just fine. I use this same focus when working on my team's quarterly planning or writing annual reviews. I'm exhausted afterwards, but I get a lot done in a little bit of time, and it's totally worth it. Creativity is also utilized in a lot of these tasks, and that's where I shine. There are so many books and TED Talks about ways to find creativity, but when it comes to me and other ADHDers, it's so much easier. My son actually is one of the most creative people that I know, and he's an ADHDer. He has an amazing imagination and a lot less information to process, so he is free to wander in any direction his mind takes him. Whenever I'm in a team meeting and we're discussing issues that we're facing, I always have a few ideas in my pocket if they ever decide to ask me. A slight little hurdle that I have to jump over every time, though, is that I don't overshare because I have all of these ideas flooding in over and over again. That is where I've built good habits, like writing these ideas down instead of vocalizing them to counteract the less productive aspects of my ADHD. Let's jump into our third trait, energy and enthusiasm. I have this in spades. It is my superpower. I am a very passionate person about helping people grow to the best version of themselves. This is the whole reason why I am constantly creating podcasts, blog posts, my book, and all of the social media posts I put on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Everyone needs a champion, and I want to be yours. I know that sounds corny, but it's just who I am. I've been utilizing these mediums to channel all of my energy outward because I've spent the last 5 years pointing it inward to become the version 10.0 of myself. One lesson I was taught was meet people where their energy is and then listen for the opportunities to help raise their levels to my own. This was one of the secret ingredients that really helped me elevate in my career. I had a habit of riding the lightning as I came into meetings or engaged my coworkers in discussion. And let me tell you, dealing with me and that type of energy before you had your coffee, it's a bit much. So I built a habit of priming myself before presenting or getting into a quick discussion with others. It just so happens that last week I was in my one-on-one with my manager and we were talking about what things I could do to further my career. One of the things that he commented on was that I had this ability. This was exactly the confirmation I needed. We didn't just stop there, though. We also talked about executive presence. Executive presence is the combination of personal qualities, behaviors, and communication skills that inspire trust and the ability to motivate others. I took this as an opportunity to learn and take a deep dive into really what skills I needed to work on and areas where I shine. I was able to identify 3 key traits that someone in leadership with ADHD may need to navigate. They are impulsivity, distractibility, and overcommitment, all of which pull away from executive presence. When being a leader, it's important to stay poised and project confidence. My impulsivity runs rampant inside my mind, but I built a habit of writing my thoughts down instead of just acting on them or even sharing them prematurely. This way, my mind can move past the thought and stay on task. Distractibility is another tough nut to crack in leadership. When you're an individual contributor, problems come from every direction. And with good leadership, you feel empowered to solve them on your own. But not every problem can be solved at your level. So you escalate the problem to your leader in hopes of obtaining direction. The distraction is not the contributor coming to the leader for guidance. The distraction is the leader's ADHD mind now yearning to solve the problem by engaging your creativity and energy. Every fiber of my being wants to take over in these moments and use this as an outlet. But this is not what you should do. Let's build a quick habit loop and walk through what action I believe would be the best benefit for everyone. First, we'll start with the cue or trigger. Obviously, this is when the employee brings the problem to you. But before we jump to the routine or the action that you'll take, I want you to imagine the reward, because the outcome in this situation is actually the most important. What do you want out of the habit for your employee? In my case, I want the problem solved, but I want it to be discovered by the employee. This will build confidence and competence, and that will help elevate their career at an exponential rate. With the reward in mind, let's establish a viable routine to multiply our team members. I really like Dan Martell's 131 method. This is where the contributor will bring one specific problem, 3 viable solutions, and 1 recommendation of which solution is best. I'm a firm believer in leading by example, so I use this a lot. But I ask others to use this, and the magic that has resulted from this is that I have decreased my meetings by 30%. One thing to note, though, just slight little disclaimer, is that it's only as good as your restraint not to come up with the answers, as well as make sure that the employee takes ownership. I make a point to celebrate their ability to think through the problem and then tell them, hey, you have 51% ownership of the direction of the solution. But I always make sure that they know that if anything goes wrong, that they have my full support and I will take the heat. This way we can continue to iterate without fear, and that will build the trust that's needed to grow. The 131 method is just one of many other routines that I help individuals really build upon to build up their own amazing skills. The goal is always to build people up and help them realize their own potential. There is one more trait that I mentioned earlier. That's overcommitment. This, I believe, is not actually owned by ADHDers alone, but one that can make it exceptionally difficult to make progress in your career. ADHDers have a tendency to take on too many tasks or responsibilities at once. This is primarily due to their difficulty gauging time accurately, a desire to please others, and a lack of awareness of their own limitations. This can lead to feeling overwhelmed and failing to follow through on commitments. But I don't have to worry about this because guess what? I built a habit around this. I had this amazing manager. She taught me this one line. It's a mantra of mine: under promise and over deliver. This is one of my rules of life. I say this at least once a day to myself, and once a week I'll sneak it into my meetings. Now, on occasion, I'll try to say it in one of the meetings, and I'll find that somebody else says it. I just have this big, huge smile on my face. When practicing under promise and over deliver, I'll say things like, I need to discuss this with the team first. Is it okay if I get back to you later today? Or, I'm not quite sure if I have that bandwidth. Let me just check. If we have to come up with a timeline, I'll also program an extra 30% into our time estimates, primarily to account for any hiccups or distractions that I have to fight off. We also try to do a very good job of communicating early and often. A big mentality that we have is making sure that transparency is always present, because that's how you build trust. Communication, transparency, and always delivering on your commitments. We've gone over some of the superpowers, the hurdles to jump over, and a few examples on how to fix them. Now it's time to take some action. I know I've talked a lot about ADHD, but none of these good habits I've shared are exclusive to someone with ADHD. My goal is to build up environments of trust where everyone feels valued and that they're doing meaningful work. Any leader worth their salt will tell you the same. Here are 3 of my top 10 actionable takeaways that any leader can implement to help multiply your team's potential. Number 1, create a focus time ritual. Dedicate specific times of hyperfocus work. Use cues like noise-canceling headphones or designated workspace. I like to put on my headphones and put on classical music. 2, brainstorm habits. Schedule weekly brainstorming sessions to harness creativity and encourage team innovation. Again, you want to make sure that they understand that no matter what, you have their back and they are free to continue to iterate and push towards better. And number 3, pause before you act. Practice a pause and evaluate habit for impulsive moments. Count to 5. Ask, will this add value right now? You create these little quick exercises as soon as you capture that idea, and that will end up helping you become more productive. If you want to read the other 7, go to baddayexcellence.com and check out my blog. There, you'll find even more information about building habits that last through life's chaos. And if you're looking to learn more about my life, career, daily habits, and challenges, feel free to follow me on Instagram at WalshMeGrow. That's Walsh, as in Brian Walsh, me, grow. I'm your habit craft guide and your biggest champion, Brian Walsh, and thank you so much for listening to Bad Day Excellence.